We move into today. We've gone through our declarations of principle, and we're at the eighth one, which is we affirm that the doorway to reformation is never closed against any soul here or hereafter. Now, I want to explain a little bit that reformation does not mean change. It means improvements. And that is what we are doing. We are improving ourselves. And, as I was sleeping this morning, I woke up. I don't know, the alarm got me up because I've been getting up early. And when I would lay my head back down, I started focusing on this principle here. The doorway to reformation is never closed. Doors represent opportunities. What's the cliche? There's a door of the doorway to opportunities. That's what I've learned. That's how I've always interpreted it as opportunities. Doors lead to opportunities. And we have these opportunities all the time to improve ourselves. But, when we look to nature, and that's what these principles are about. They're about nature. And as we look to nature, we see all the activities that are going on there. And we see what we have in common with the animals. Well, at least some of them anyway. And some of those animals, like some of us, we kind of like it where we're at. We don't like to change. We don't like to make any improvements. We want things to remain the same. Kind of a flat line there, whatever that may entail. And those are the things that nature doesn't necessarily approve of. These storms that we experience, this is nature cleaning things up, shaking the tree, getting the flack out of the way. And yet here we are, many of us who try to hold on to what we have. We don't want to change because we're comfortable. And when we get comfortable, we don't like anything disturbing us. I'm sure many of you are like that. Yes? Yeah, it's nap time. Don't bother me. But nature is all about movement. It's all about moving forward. And for us, it's making improvements. The biggest, if you look at the history of humanity, the biggest problem humanity has ever faced and continues to face is its resistance. It resists anything that moves it in a direction until there's this upheaval. And with that upheaval, it's like an earthquake. Everything is just thrown askew. Look at what we're experiencing now with our social unrest. None of that has gone away. It's still there. It's not as obvious, but it's still there. Our social structure right now is it's like that earth tremors. It's waiting for this huge explosion or implosion because there's so many of us, not necessarily me or you, but there are so many humans that are resisting the need for change, that are resisting the natural progress. And, as it goes, the doorway to reformation is never closed here or hereafter. Excuse me. And what that means is that this resistance that so many people are enforcing, it goes with them. When they make this transition, it goes with them. If they're not going to change here willingly, chances are very good that they're not going to change in any of those other rooms willingly. They're going to have to, there's this upheaval is going to have to take place. And these opportunities for change, they're with us wherever we go. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Does this make sense to you? How about you, John? Does this make sense to you?
Of course it does. Why would all of a sudden there be a change? We stay the same. So the problems we got, we take with us. Some people have problems who want to move to the West Coast because that feels good. They're taking their problems with them. They're manifesting them there just as well as where they're leaving from. So why should, when we pass over, why should there be a difference?
Exactly. So you recognize this resistance that so many of us are invested in.
We like to stay lazy and stay in the known because that's what we know. But if we were to just let go, things can open up. We are not the person that we identify with that wants to hang on to what we know. We're much more than that. So the best we can do is hang on for the ride because life will live through us and will show us where it wants us. I mean, show the little I. Big I am knows exactly how to live through the little I am and put it where it wants to be, where it's needed.
Nicely put. I like that. Any comments?
Well, water follows the path of least resistance. You have said that multiple times. So that's a natural law. And us being a natural being, we are going to take the path of least resistance unless some new cognition, some new awareness comes. I still experience resistance. I'm going through a period of resistance right now with my spiritual development. And I really feel like I'm banging my head against a boulder. And the way out of it is just real simple. It's like, do the opposite of what you've been doing. But I can't motivate myself to do it. So I figure, okay, yeah, I'm stuck for a reason. I'm stuck here. I'm stuck at this spot for a reason. You know, what's the lesson in it? Or what kind of fear is holding me back? I've been really pissed at some of these messages I've been getting, and that's what the resistance is. So I've been blocking them until they beat their way through.
That's very observant on your part, especially with the messages. Now, when I was learning to do this, to do messages in this fashion, my teacher, Reverend Lewis Miller, he would say that when you're learning message work, when you're learning to do that stuff, you tend to draw in what they term the negative stuff. And he said the reason why is because it's charged with so much energy. You know, when we look at the politics and what happened with the politics and how it just exploded, it was the topic for months. Even after it was over with, it was the topic for months. And why? Because it's charged with so much emotion. So that's why we tend to pick those up when we first start learning this, especially if we're getting serious about it. And when I was learning this, I picked up a lot of messages that would be considered negative, but they were all connected to my personal experience of life. So it's very good that you've zoned in on that. Yeah, it's my resistance because I'm pissed at these messages that I have been getting because they're not the ones you want. but that's what's emotionally charged in the nation. It's as though you are opened up wide instead of the way most of us are, which is narrow. I wouldn't say it's a bad thing, but again, it's a matter of learning who's in control and allowing the information to flow. Because what happens when the dam bursts? You got all that crap that flows through first. And once that crap is gone, you've got all that other nice, cool, clear water that begins to flow. It's a matter of experience that comes with that.
I just realized I don't like the responsibility that comes with those messages.
Ah, okay, good, good. So you notice with Beth, she's allowing nature to make these changes within her, and she's also adding her own influence to those changes as well. You see, it's not just one or the other. It's co-creative. You play a role, nature plays a role, or infinite intelligence plays a role, or God plays a role. It's always these two basic energies. It's always going to be active and receptive. So good. How about you, Rachel?
Well, what has occurred to me listening to this talk are a couple of things. First, I don't know if you guys have all seen The Secret, but there's a guy on there named Michael Beckwith who's a spiritual pastor, and he was interviewed on Oprah, and he said, I often feel that almost all spiritual lessons come down to learning to let go. And I've thought of that a lot, and feel like that can be applied to a lot of spiritual situations. But secondly, I've spent, I feel like my whole life in careers or working on myself in regards to self-improvement and others change, helping others change in mental health and social service. And there are so many aspects and variables to an individual's change that we wouldn't even have time to really cover it all today. But I did notice working in substance abuse that sometimes it's the 10th time where things finally click. There are some things that are kind of beyond our will or what we would like to see for our lives. Some spiritual reason or, life lesson reason, or call it, divine order to our lives where certain things needed to play out. And then there's the personality aspect. Me and a friend last night were talking about life learner personalities versus some others who are pretty resistant to learning. They just don't care to think. I mean, I've actually had people tell me it's too much work to think that deeply, and I don't really care to do it. So there's all kinds of personalities out there, and that really influences change too and decisions. So I guess that's my 2 cents, is that there are a lot of variables to think about in what goes into your own self-improvement and ability to move through a lesson in life at a certain speed. There's certainly things that I wish that I would have gotten a lot quicker.
I'm sure all of us feel that way. But I like that you mentioned Michael Beckwith. I've come across some of his material here and there, and I've enjoyed it. And the idea of letting go, I read that a lot in the Buddhist writings. If you anytime I experience any kind of difficulty, I stop and I look at what it is that I'm holding on to determine if I'm ready to let go. I know eventually I have to let it go, but am I ready to let it go? That's powerful. It's something to think about. So thank you, Rachel. So how about you, Sandy? Anything you'd like to add with this?
Yes, and a lot of thoughts have come to my mind too, and I understand it's even more clarifying what you just said about, am I ready to let go? And that's why we are sitting here now saying, I wish I had done that 20 years ago, because maybe we weren't. And when the time is right, it does fall into place. And I found in life too, that the more resistance I've given to that change, because we are comfortable, and but most of it, I think, is just fear. We're fear of changing. And so we're afraid of the unknown and the fear. But then when we finally step onto the other side of it, it's, at least in my life, I've always let out a sigh and said, okay, here I am. And then wonder why I took so long to do it. And always fall into the embrace of that new situation and wonder what I was afraid of in the first place. And yet, even though I don't know, I'll only speak for myself, even though I know that, I still fear change, even though I know that. I'm going through it right now with, sell my house, don't sell my house. I'm okay with selling my house, but my fear is where I'm going to go. So here I am stuck in this spot. But I feel like I'm just feeling like it's not lined up yet. I just keep feeling that when it's lined up, I'll know it's going to be right. And I'm feeling like I'm stalling, but I don't like the feeling that I'm stalling, but I feel like there's something that's not right in the equation right now. So anyway, I didn't mean to digress about that, but yes, that's exactly, that's exactly how I feel. Oh gosh. Yeah. Always after the fact, I'm glad I did it and wonder why I waited so long. Yeah.
Was anybody listening to what she said about fear? And then afterwards, I don't know if you're aware of it, but you're actually using fear as a tool.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very, very impressive. Fear, we get all these emotions and everything, and they're telling us something. And these are tools in our toolbox that we can use. And fear is a good tool to use. I use it quite a bit myself because it always tells me, like you said, something's missing. So we either wait for that missing piece to fall into place or we go looking for it. But very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sharon, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I totally was right with Sandy too, and Beth and Rachel. I mean, all of you brought so much to the table here. Fear, of course, is also on my list. It probably holds me back. I was remembering Reverend Thomas at one of the sessions we had over at the Spiritual Center, and he was talking about confronting the obstacle that is in the way, confronting that, but getting to the point where you're able to confront it, and then once you could, I remember him saying something to the effect that once he did it, it was always less than what he perceived it was going to be. It was always not as bad as he thought it was going to be. And once he got over that hurdle, then same like you said, well, why didn't I do this sooner? And so when you were talking, I was remembering him saying that at one of the classes. So yeah, and I'm in the same boat. I see changes coming, and I am gone back to the part where I surrender all need to know the timing. That is the hardest of all of those things. That is the hardest thing for me to get. And every time we say it every week, I say to myself, oh boy, this one is tough, because I want to know the timing. I'm needing to know what's going on. Just like Nancy said, I need to know. I need a little control freak, and I need to know. Well, apparently I don't, but I do. So I think about that, and then I try to say, okay, you know what, letting go. I can't change it today. I can't do anything about it today. So I'm just going to do the things I need to do. And myself too, Beth, I feel like I'm kind of at an impasse too, where I'm kind of stalling, and I'm kind of like, I don't know what, I feel like I've hit a wall and I'm not really going forward. And I beat myself up about that, because I thought, well, it must be me. But, well, it is me, I guess, in some respects, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe it's necessary right now because I need to do some other things. I don't know. Not sure the reason, but, I guess because I feel like I've hit that wall, I can't see beyond the wall. And I want to see beyond the wall, but I don't know when I'm going to be able to see beyond the wall. So does that make sense? I just, yeah.
Yep.
So kind of that's where I'm at right now too.
The thing to keep in mind, remember when we talked about the Hermetic principles and flow, there's inflow and outflow. But one of the things that we miss with that is when you breathe, we breathe in, but we don't immediately breathe out. We breathe in and we hold, and then we breathe out. There's that space in between there where nothing happens. It's like that wall. Nothing happens. It's the waves. They flow in, pause, and then they flow back out, pause, and then they flow in. Those walls we keep hitting, or we say we're hitting, those are the pauses in movement. Because oscillations, vibration, there's that pause in between each one. That's why it's a vibration. So when we come across those walls that we're experiencing, that's that pause between one movement and the next. So something to keep in mind. And like all of you, I still have those times when I resist, because I'm not ready. Wait. Resistance is not a bad thing. It becomes a bad thing when you are resisting across the board, when you refuse to move forward, when you refuse to change, when you refuse, then there's the problem, because that's what happens. We become comfortable and we refuse. So nice insights there. Nancy, do you like to add anything?
Well, like my niece, Rachel, I've always been in mental health field, working to get the mentally ill insurance, and dealing with them one-on-one, and also in their finances, being payees and such. And I can fix them. I mean, I can help them, and I can let go, knowing that it's okay, and I always tell them, it's okay. I got you, we're going to get through this. But when it comes to me, myself, And when I was younger, I just kind of floated through life and everything would line up correctly because I let it go. Even though when I was in a band at one time, they would always call me Little General, just because I had to have it perfect, otherwise I'm not going to sing it, kind of thing. But as I've gotten older, and no help from my dad who has passed on, but he instilled in me change is bad, change is never good. So, but on the flip side, he would say, this too shall pass, when he was in trouble, with his health or something, and I had to help him, he would always just mumble under his breath, this too shall pass, this too shall pass. So as I've gotten older now, I resist so much of changing, and I know I have to let go. And just like I shared earlier about my husband, the way he is, but it's so hard because I keep hitting my head against the wall going, why can't he just bring me into the fold with him? Why can't he just tell me what's happening? Just talk. That's all. Just tell me what I'm to expect. So for me, I'm like the rest of that, everybody that has talked, I feel like I'm hitting a wall. I know, and I'm waiting for the pieces to come into place, so it'll just all line up like it used to when I was younger, because I let the universe take me to the next step, to the next step, to the next step. I knew where I was going. My goal, my direction was focused. But here now, it's all over the place. I can't focus on one thing, because if I focus on that too long, then I get lost with this resistance, or I forget about it and think I don't need to change that. No, I'm good. But I do, and I know I do. I know I have to let go. So it's just a running cycle now. Since my dad has passed, I had control over all of his medication, over all of, just like I did when I was working in the mental health field. I had control over their whole life and what they needed to do at what time and all the stuff. And now that I don't have that control, because I don't have to take care of anyone except me. And I've never had that before. So it's difficult for me to let go. It's extremely difficult to let go of myself and change and just let myself flow again, because too many years have passed where I've controlled and helped other people and forgot about me. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the fear is there. The fear of changing is like, if I give in, am I going to be weak? If, if I let go of my control freak personality that I've developed, am I going to lose myself? So that fear that you all have talked about, I mean, I feel it every day. And sometimes it even sends me into anxiety thinking about it. So, so yeah, that makes sense. That's where I'm at and how I'm seeing things.
If I could make a suggestion, words are important. The words we use to describe things are very important. What would happen if you let go of the word control and brought in structure?
Yeah, or discipline.
I wouldn't go with discipline. I wouldn't recommend it, but structure, because structure is it's a form of stability with flexibility. I don't know if that makes sense, but sometimes words are important, and the words that we use can convey meanings that are rigid or flexible. So it's something to just think about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So does anyone else have any comments or questions they'd like to voice? Yes, go ahead.
With everybody, I hear an urgency of needing to accomplish this. And we need to, at least for me, keep in mind that when we're ready, change happens in an instant sometimes. But it doesn't happen until we are ready to let go, to overcome this, to overcome the fear. And it's perfectly okay. We have all the time in the universe. It is not a rush job. And Beth was talking about going with the flow. Well, eventually we'll figure out that the easiest flow is the path of no resistance, to where we let it happen. And that's actually the easiest. And until such time, we're going to hit ourselves head against the wall and hit our head against the wall. And that resistance and holding on is painful. And sooner or later, we've had enough. And then we're ready. And change happens instantly. The point is, we got all the time in the world. Don't worry about it. It'll happen when we're tired of being in pain, when we're tired of our behavior, when we're sick and tired of how this is working time and time repeatedly, then we're ready.
Nicely put, John.
Well, and I guess I would piggyback on what John said by bringing up a simple concept of intention. Because there's a technique that I use when I feel resistance, which is just sometimes I feel like we make things too complicated, and they're very simple. And we have the power to shift energy with our intention. So I'll go into meditation, and when I feel resistance to something, or I feel a resentment that I've been carrying, and I will ask myself 2 questions. What is this about? And God, help me dissolve this right now. I intend to dissolve this resentment, or I intend to dissolve this resistance. I'm open to what I need to do now. I'm ready to move forward and not have this resistance keep me back. And I have not experienced a time it doesn't work. It works every time. I feel the shift. So I'll just toss that out there, because I do think intention can move mountains.
Yes. Very good. Thank you for that. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add? Well, then I would like to close with this. Spiritual growth is much easier and more consistent if we practice kindness and unselfishness. Make this the preferred habit, and concern about reformation will dissipate of its own accord. So, thank you for allowing me to share that.